So much going on, and it's wonderful that this was even live, because this is the situation you find yourself in now. We have 60 some odd people from all over the globe, and when we're doing things live, we have to do things different. And collaboration, one of my team members popping up, very helpful, just making sure that the screen was showing as I was chatting along. But again, this is all based on the surprising neuroscience behind learning with deep understanding. And again, the only thing I ask that you do is participate. All you'll need to participate is a piece of paper. If you've printed out the PDF, the CR worksheet that I sent in the email prior, thank you. That's what you'll use. If you did not, just get a plain old piece of paper, a scratch paper like the one I have here, and a pen, because there are some exercises, and this is important for this model, as you'll see as we go further. Now we're going to go into the model. You're going to experience Brain-centric Design's challenge wheel online. And one thing I want to tell you about before we do that, this is the last thing. You need to understand that everybody on the other side of this screen, the people you're presenting to, are only thinking about one thing, and that's me here now. I know that's three things, but it's one thing. It's me. They only want to know it's about me, and it's right here and it's right now. It's important you understand that, because as I jump into this model, everything is very intentional and deliberate as I move forward. And we do it for the reason that I want to expose you to a different framework of learning, a different paradigm. I use the word framework, and that's very important because it's an essential supporting structure. And in this case, we are building a presentation using scaffolding, and then we'll take down that scaffolding. So the baseline, the reason you're here first, is to think about a framework. Example might be the ABCs. You learn the ABCs, you put those letters together, you learned how they sound, you learned how they wrote them. They became words, words became chapters and sentences and books and works of art. That's a framework. Numbers, math, these things are frameworks as well. Just think about the plus, minus, times, and many things you can do with algebra, and you put them together. It's a framework in which to do any kind of math. There's frameworks for currency, of course. You got dollars, you've got pounds, you've got euros, you've got all kinds of things that rely on a framework. Law relies on a framework. So our basis here today is framework, and for our purposes, we'll call that framework education, how we learn stuff, how you engage a group of people in a new concept and make them relish everything that you're pulling across, because you put a lot of work into it. And this picture here depicts a great example of our educational framework. This is 100 and some odd years old. It comes into the framework, and the idea is that we walk into a class, we sit in rows, we shut up, the sage and the stage comes in, and you can see by all the happy, joyous faces, this model is a winner. And not only is a winner, but we use it in our businesses today. So most of you have situations where you're teaching a group of people, and in the same model, they come into a room, they can sit down, and you can see that they are incredibly engaged in the material you're about to present. Now it even gets worse today, because now that we feel the pain of our collective situations of presenting anything or teaching anything or doing a workshop with anybody, engagement is tough, and we're here for engagement. We now added that these folks are remote, and we're in charge of them. We're in charge of these people to now engage in the same content they did not engage in with this framework before. And now we add this. Are they even paying attention? They're at home and you're wondering if they're engaged, and they could show on the webinar like they're passive, but they're playing games. These are important things, and I don't mean to bring them up as funny. It's more painful because we just don't know if they're connected, and we need to make sure that they're connected. So let's go back to this model of the classroom and this circle. We'll make it very simple in this presentation and very quick and very varied, and you'll see very different. Let's make this circle represent an hour in class, or a presentation, or a workshop, or any series of what we do. The learning model, in addition to walking into a class and sitting in rows and being quiet and listening to somebody, includes this model. And in this model, you're given all kinds of information that you're told to memorize and ingest, because at the end of that hour, you'll be given a test to regurgitate all the information that you just found out on that particular day. And that test grade is what gives you your self-worth. And a lot of times you're an F, you're a B, you're a C, you're a D, you get out of the class, all based on this model. And it's never worked. It's never worked at all to the even to 50%. Right now, less than 50% of high school people, we have high school graduates. And the numbers are getting worse. And we can touch on that later. All of this is science. Again, not marketing, science. So here's our market or our educational model. And it, again, this could be an hour, a day, a week, 14 weeks, depending on what you and just basically how we do things and assess them. The difference here when it comes to our model with adults, we are now going online. And the reason you're here is to engage your listeners, your viewers, your users, your learners remotely. This is where the paper comes in. And this is where the model really changes, and I'll explain it. But get out a piece of paper or get that CR worksheet that I gave you. It looks just like this. And your challenge is, how can my learning framework deliver engaged learners who comprehend everything I present enthusiastically? So that's just a question I'm asking you. And in the next 60 seconds, I want you to write your thoughts about your current situation right here on that PDF, that CR worksheet. You get 60 seconds to do it. You're not going to share this with anybody. This is key to the cognitive way of making sure people understand information. You're going to lean in and give me your thoughts. You have 60 seconds to do so. Start now. And that's our 60 seconds. Very deliberate, very intentional. I kept to my word. I give you 60 seconds. I gave you my word. I'll be out of here within an hour. But this is intentional and deliberate to these kinds of learning spaces. We don't call them classrooms because classroom is the model you see on your screen now, the model that you grew up with. You went to elementary, junior high, high school, college. Now you're replicating this at work. You're looking for something different. And there is a new model. It comes from cognitive neuroscience. It is the learning sciences. And it is different from all of neuroscience. We'll discuss that in just a second. But it is a model just like the one you see on your screen. And the model looks like this. This is called Brain-centric Design's challenge wheel. Challenge wheel. It's an hour or a week or 14 weeks, whatever your learning space is. And it includes a challenge, some initial thoughts, some multiple perspectives, and some chance to reflect, revise, and report out. That's a real quick way of looking at it. But just say this is an hour, and each one of these, I'll explain what this hour looks like. So we're in a framework of a new paradigm. The one on the left is sometimes called the old model, the one on the right, the new model. The one on the left, sometimes called behaviorist thinking, the one on the right, cognitive thinking. We call that one on the right the challenge wheel. And here's why. When we're presenting something, the old way of looking at things is, I've got to teach this class everything I know about chocolate chip cookies. And so you prepare all your materials and you spend time and you write things out and you tell everybody about chocolate chip cookies. This is how we do it different in a challenge wheel. We would start off with a challenge, much like the one you just wrote. You wrote a challenge that I presented to you, and I gave you 60 seconds to lean in and give me your initial thoughts. All the time prior to this time, before I asked you to lean in, were the initial thoughts stage. I wanted to engage you in your prefrontal cortex, make you strategize, maybe look into the future and see what you look back into what your framework was. These were the initial thoughts. What I'm starting now is a section of the challenge wheel called multiple perspectives. Multiple perspectives are key to this model because they help you uncover the information with the learner. Now that's different, way different when you consider how the old model works. The old model was The facilitator, the teacher, the presenter, the manager covers the information. Here's my check marks. Check, 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 check. In this model, we present information so that the learners can uncover the information. Our model's different in that we understand that everybody in the classroom has a brain. And 99.9% of those brains process information the same way, the exact same way. We know that the thing that we're teaching, right now we're teaching about a framework that engages people online or in the office itself or in business meetings, wherever you use it. We present this because we want you to understand that it not only works, but we want to give you an angle, another perspective of how it's put together. And in multiple perspectives, the way we teach it, you connect your perspective, your concept, your big idea to 4 lobes of the brain, all 4 lobes. The old way is one way, a lecture, the temporal lobe. You listen, you try to memorize. The new way, you light up the whole brain. You have to light up the whole brain. You have to not only think cognitively, but metacognitively. These are in multiple perspectives. This lasts about 15 or 20 minutes in this hour. After we show the multiple perspectives, we give every learner, every user, every person in the audience 2 minutes to reflect on what they just saw. Reflect gives them the ability, just like Bill Gates put into to computer language, it gives you random access memory. This lets you look into everything you just saw, apply it towards all the thoughts and experiences you have on that particular concept, and structure your reflections on 3 answers. What was surprising? What did I already know and now see in a different light? And what do I still need help with? That's in 2 minutes. We give them that time. And again, I'll send you all this information. In this instance, revised thinking, the part of the challenge wheel, this is where literally the magic happens, the learning happens. You've had your initial thoughts. You've been shown multiple perspectives. You've given time to reflect on those multiple perspectives with 3 questions. And now you join a group. Up until this time, it's been you individually. And now you join a group of like thinkers to revise your thinking on those same 3 questions. There's what was surprising, what did I already know but now see in a different light, and what do I still need help with? And everybody in the group gets to share their thoughts and experiences with those 3 questions on that piece of content as if they're human and had a brain and would love to collaborate. We're wired to learn. We love to get together. We love to get better at cooking. We love to get better at presenting meetings online. We love to get better at running, playing with the dog, visiting with our kids. Are hardwired to love to get better, and we're hardwired to be social. And that is why when you put social with a online piece, you become magical. This happens in revised thinking. And then at the end of the hour is the report out phase. One person from each one of these groups stands up and says, we, the brain-centric designers, think that this was surprising, that we already knew this and now see this in a different light, and we still need help with this. That's a simple version of how this wheel works. A better version is to get it from the person that has spent the last 40 years of his life developing this model, Dr. Timothy Kiran Omani. He's a learning scientist and cognitive neuroscientist, and he's with us here today to explain this further. Dr. Omani, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to talk for about 2 or 3 things quickly to reiterate some of the information you just gave. It's a lot of information in a short amount of time, but the brain can handle that if it's presented in an interesting way. So first of all, I'm a learning scientist in cognitive neuroscience. The distinction between a learning scientist and an educator or a teacher has to do with the amount of time and energy we put into pedagogy and the pedagogic content knowledge and the pedagogic content layer. These are all invisible pieces that sit between the content and the learner, and we look at the models and the disciplines that help people to get beyond the EFI, which is the executive function impairment, and have access to the working memory and the parts of the brain that really light up when we have interest and engagement in our own learning. That has to do with metacognition, of course, and agency. So let's talk about the model itself. As you said, and you are so right, everything about the model is intentional. It's a model that has 5 parts to it because it fits Miller's law. We probably won't have time to do Miller's Law today in any great depth, but Miller was the genius back in 1957 who produced a beautiful paper called the what was the name?
Magical number 7
The
plus
magical
minus 2.
number, yes, the magical number 7 plus or minus 2. In 2014, that paper was adjusted by Miller and by Dr. Cowan, another professor who worked with him, to investigate if that actually was the correct answer for the limitations of working memory. And they increased the number of participants from 500 to 5,000. And the way we look at the adjusted Miller today is the magical number 4 plus or minus 2. That means on any particular day, a person in your class will have 4 plus or minus 2 capacity in terms of managing new concepts. Since we're teachers and instructors and facilitators, we expect that most of our students and learners will be struggling because of their private lives and public lives and all the other kinds of lives they lead. And so we work from the lower number, number 2. The model itself fits Miller's Law, and all the parts of the model are designed to not break Miller's Law. The second rule we work from is Hebb's rule, and Dr. Hebb, back in 1960 or so, also created the algorithm for how the brain works by releasing to the world the neurons that fire together, wire together. So we know how the brain works. We know how knowledge is encoded into long-term memory through the working memory and other aspects. We also know what happens when that's broken, like amygdala hijack or cognitive load theory. And so now I want to focus for a few seconds on what it means to have 3 R's in education. In the old model, 3 R's stood for reading, writing, and arithmetic. Not very accurately, but still that's how we came to know the 3 R's. Today, the 3 R's have to do with a cognitive approach that we have in brain-centric design called, the first one is to reflect, the second one is to revise your thinking, and the last one is to report out. This is where the individual learner finds voice, becomes agentic, and becomes metacognitive. It's carefully built into the process so that they are great learning machines like every human brain is. So I'm going to stop there, and we might get back to answering questions if you need to later on. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you. Now, I want to make sure we're on the same page when it comes to exactly how much information we retain. And this is part of engagement, because you can't engage, as Dr. Omani just said, without emotion. Sales are based on emotion, and learning is based on emotion. There's a thing in learning called the Ebbinghaus curve. The Ebbinghaus curve, or the forgetting curve, is maybe how you might have heard of it. And it's basically, we don't retain everything we learn. We forget about so much after it's presented. Now, this is in the old model, and this is key to this information today. And I would like to know how this group, again, feels and about this particular question and what they think the answer to this is. This is an example of doing things online that bring information and learning visible to the person using stuff you already know. So right now, I've got a poll up on your screen I'd like you to take part in. And I'm asking you, how much information does the learner retain 6 days after a typical class? And I'll give you 60 seconds to do so. And as all the items come in, let me share the results with you on here. And as you can see, this is making learning visible. If you're collaborating with your groups, let's just make this question something different. Like, how many of you agree? Which one of you, or which answer do y'all think is correct out of the 4 possible answers after what I've shown you? You could do an example like this and bring this up here. So I'm showing you this so that you can keep people engaged, also see how this works within the model. So in this case, we're all over the place with what we think. And what's beautiful is I did this anonymously, keeping it safe. I didn't want Ellen to pop up and have a wrong answer, or, you know, Michelle or Dave or Jeff, anybody to have any kind of embarrassment, or what we say an amygdala hijack, to put you in any kind of state of stress, something that you do every day in your classes by saying, Bob, what's the answer to number 4? You know, Bob's freaking out. So this is why we do this exercise. and we want to show you how this interaction engagement works. It's a simple poll and a simple tool, but the answer is 25%. This is under the old way of teaching. You retain 25% of your information. Now, what I've also showed you is an example of your learning shifting, regardless of what your answer was. I wasn't here to say wrong or right. I'm here to show you how to show shifts. And I've just taken you from whatever you said to the answer of 25%. The reason I bring this up is with BCD, which is a science, we have empirical data, which I'll share for you in a moment. But because it's a science, you get predictable results. And with predictable results, you can plan accordingly in your business. And our comprehension rates are up to 100%. And they average in the high 90s of courses. And this is weeks and weeks and weeks after, as judged by Kirkpatrick's model for evaluation. And again, I'll share that for you. When you translate it this or move this online, you get some amazing situations here. And I'm going to let you hear from one of the people that have gone through our certification process. He started a couple years ago and works for Aetna. His name is Danny Pringle.
I really enjoy this methodology and this concept. As a instructional designer and learning consultant, it makes building the content more enjoyable versus the older way of training and us just writing these long documents of text. Being able to really sit back and be creative with how we present these perspectives is a lot of fun. So, you know, I look at it from the facilitation aspect of using BCD and also from the development aspect. It makes it enjoyable to facilitate it, and it makes it enjoyable to develop.
I also want to thank whoever said the volume was low, because it brought up a wonderful point that I just showed you. It's going to be different on people's computers no matter what. We're with technology now, and we have to use adaptive expertise to make sure that happens. In this case, we have closed captioning. The biggest thing you can do with an online video is add closed captioning, because again, they're at home, they might have kids running around, they have a short attention span. It's only about 8 seconds. And if they're bored, if it's not about me here now, I'm out of here. Great example of this. In his example, he spoke specifically to multiple perspectives. And again, I can't tell you how important this piece is when you start connecting things up to the different concepts, up to the different lobes of the brain, and you light up somebody, you'll see how this works. But how does this transform a learner once they get into this new methodology? I want to show you what Danny said to that as well.
I would think my transformation would be similar to like a butterfly, where like before BCD, I was in a cocoon, and then after learning BCD and applying it, I was able to emerge from the cocoon as a butterfly. I feel like it really made me a stronger learning consultant, being able to look at the training needs and try to best determine how to communicate the content to the learners. It also made me a mentor to my peers. A lot of them come to me with ideas and suggestions and want to run them by me and see, hey, does this meet BCD? Will our learners get this information? So I think it definitely transformed me into a better and more prepared learning consultant.
How do you take this information and put it online? Fortunately, you can put it on any platform. We have our own platform. It's called the Education Engine. What you're seeing are different versions of how we put this online. And we've always used it just for our clients. We've never made this an experience management system, a brain management system available to the public, but we're doing so now because of what's happened in the last 2 weeks. There's no offer here. I'm just making you aware of this. If you use Canvas, if you use PowerPoints, you can do that. But if you need to get this online, you can take a PowerPoint and suck it up into this and literally be on an hour. I'm just showing you this because it can go into any learning management system if you structure it according to the wheel. There are benefits to others, and there's answers right now if you need them, regardless of the size of things. I wanted to show you how the 3 R's that Dr. Omani spoke about look inside a online application. This is using the Education Engine, and this is also from our online experience. We have a 32 chapter online experience of learning every chapter in Brain Design, the book, which I'm holding up now. Of course, you can get that on Amazon and all that, but this is the audio book taking you through the chapters, and then each chapter being put into a challenge wheel so you can thoroughly, deeply understand each piece of content and replicate that how you need to replicate that. So let me just show you real quickly what the experience looks online and how you might emulate this with the tools you have, or use ours if that's what you need. You might have seen there at the end of that last one, the report out version shows a PDF of all the things that you interacted with around that single piece of content, and how businesses are using that and keeping people engaged is it shows their answers. It shows how they engage throughout a course. And at the bottom, it said supervisor's signature. Because of the remote learning, some of our clients are calling back and saying what they're having them do is save that PDF, and then as a manager, you're scheduling 10, 15 minutes and saying, okay, Bob, you know, what did you think was surprising about that new procedure we're implementing because we're all virtual workers? You do get the feedback, and it's guaranteed as you move forward. Very strong. Now, the empirical knowledge I wanted to talk about real quick on this model. I've shown you how what the model is, how it's put together, what people do when they adapt to it, what happens to them personally, and how it looks online. I've got several testimonies of how it happens within a classroom, but right now we're looking at engaging remote learners. So let's go over the data, the hard data. This is from one of our earlier clients. We started working with them about 3 years ago. They're global in nature, and they've used Kirkpatrick's levels of evaluation, and we wanted to show you the highlights of that engagement. This is from 2 years ago, but we just got the 4th level in the past week and a half, which was kind of timely for this presentation. In the participation reaction, learners are more pleased, and this is heart and soul of what I'm talking about now. You're looking for engagement, and we're talking 98.4% facilitator score, meaning they like the facilitator better because they're no longer a teacher, no longer a lecturer, no longer a slave driver. As one of our brain-centric instructional designers said, Ellen Thompson, she said, it's like hosting a wonderful dinner party where everything is planned and it's just so, and everybody's entertained throughout. And of course, if you throw a good party, you get a good score. And in our case, the party is a framework that you follow, and if you follow it, you get the good score. The experience is high, the course organization is high, and as far as customer satisfaction, 96.8% of all students, and we're talking global in nature, love this course. Quality metrics, increased proficiency. You not only have to have happy learners, you need them being smarter. This is the graphic, the second graphic I want to point out. This is the answer to, we have too much stuff to teach in too little time. With brain-centric design, your classes will reduce their time by 33%. If it took you an hour before, it'll take you about 40 minutes now. That's the general average. And remember, this is science, so it's a predictable result. And the reason is we've got a way of organizing your information so that you don't waste their time or send them down rabbit holes intentionally or put them into amygdala hijack. Our learning spaces are safe. Nobody says, oh, we're going to class. They don't do that. It's a different situation, and this proves it on Kirkpatrick's model. The knowledge transfer. Learners agree training is more effective in providing knowledge that they can transfer to their job, both in the transfer of knowledge and the training effectiveness. That's up 82% across the board from each one of these folks. And then the acquired knowledge. This is the money shot. This is where you point at the left field wall. Acquired knowledge. They remember stuff. The assessment increase. The average score here, average comprehension rate, 96%. And they've developed 90% more concepts with this. And this doesn't matter on the subject matter. meaning I can talk about learning how to do insurance claims, and I can learn how to do global banking operations. I can learn how to do this one foam core. I can learn how to do this OSHA requirement. I can see this sales presentation. I can build this workshop if you have a framework. We don't have to be creative anymore in doing the framework. We get creative within the framework. So let's take out that paper again. We're at the bottom of the hour, perfectly right on time. And I now want you to look at number 2, the reflection box on your piece of paper. And if you have a scratch piece of paper, that reflection box, by the way, is right down here. So when you see that reflection box, that's where you want to use your write your sentences. And we want you to use 3 questions on here. What was surprising? What did you already know but now want to see in a different light? And what do you still need help with? It's now 1:33 after the hour. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to write in these answers. Sorry, 2 minutes to write in these answers. And I will hush up until then. 2 minutes to write your answers to these 3 questions. Go. And time up. That's 2 minutes to reflect. Remember, that's the reflection part of the wheel, actually giving you the opportunity to think about what was presented rather than just hitting you with options, and giving you 3 very safe questions in which to help you think. These are structured for this. What was surprising? I could find almost anything surprising. Even if you write, I don't know, that's okay. If nothing was surprising, something will be in a second, and I'll show you why. What did I already know, but now see in a different light? This is kind of anchored learning or bridge learning. This literally takes you from where you were to where you are now. This is a shift in learning, and this exercise of encoding that information from your brain down to a piece of paper helps show that to you. Because if you look at your initial thoughts from above, you now see that your thinking has shifted, and you're seeing that you're learning, and because of that, you get a hit of dopamine. All of a sudden, your a neurotransmitter is released, and you're like, yeah, I'm getting this. Look at this. I learned some new information. This is what your learners will be doing. This is what your audience will be doing. And what do I still need help with? It just makes it visible. It doesn't say what you don't know. It doesn't give you an F because you got it wrong. It says, what do I still need help with? And as a facilitator, a manager, a sales guy, a trainer, any of the above, anybody who presents information, leads a workshop, suddenly they're nicely saying, here's what I still need help with. And there's room within the course to help on those items. We might put those in the parking lot if that's what you all use as your item for keeping those information. But it tells you what they're holding on to and what they're not holding on to, and gives you a constant assessment of your material. Not just that you were creative and done a wonderful deck and presented it, and why do those dummies don't get it. It gives you feedback that you can actionably work on. So now the third part of the model, or the fourth part of the model, which is revised thinking. And remember, we're going to use the same 3 questions, but now I'm going to use Zoom's capability to take all of you and put you into breakout rooms. We're going to put you into these rooms. There's rooms. I'm going to put you into rooms, 3 different rooms for this particular exercise. And I will make sure that I have a couple people in those rooms that are, make sure I get this right here. I'll do it automatically. And I'm going to put you into a situation where online you're going to be broken up into groups. There'll be about 10 people per group, and we'll have room for about 3 report outs at the end of this meeting. In those groups, I want you to discuss these 3 questions. What was surprising? What did I already know? And what do I see in a new light? And what do I still need help with? By having some people in charge of each group. In that group, there'll be a taskmaster, meaning making sure people talk. We'd love for somebody to be a scribe and be able to document those conversations or paraphrase what you heard. And we're going to give you 10 minutes to discuss this together. This is group collaboration online from remote learners. And I'm going to assign those rooms now. And I'm going to touch on these rooms, all of them, just to check in to make sure everything's cool. Give this about 10 seconds to happen. And then when those rooms start up, the taskmaster, you can say who's next, and just go ahead and take charge. It's a great way of doing things, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. Here we go.
you can't engage without emotion. And these days, you know, in the last couple of weeks and the way the world is shaping up to be going in the direction that it is, that's really important to remember and to now put into.
To have courses that are as long or experiences that are as long. But I think one of the things that surprised me was just how much time we can save and how much efficiency we can get after by designing to the way the brain learns versus in a traditional format.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of like that fact about 33% being reduced in normal classroom settings. So if we're able to do that and just reduce 33% of that audience time, is huge. So being able to tap into that would be great.
Rich, you're on mute.
Broadcast habit, always making sure that I don't stomp on anybody. And I wanted to thank everybody for participating in that. I dropped into the different groups and everybody was discussing things. And what was wonderful is this is the first time you've done it. And at first, like I said, I think I just got out of group one. It's sometimes it's uncomfortable because it's like, oh, what do we talk about? And how does this work? And what are the questions? This is the first time you did it. Trust me, you do it one more time, you've got it. By the third time, you're so comfortable, you're walking into the room and saying, the number one question we get back is, why didn't somebody teach us this before? You know, it's funny. The answer is it's a new science. But if we could go around to the three groups here, we've got about 11 minutes left. And I would love each group to have their person, their spokesman, if you're that person or if you're just going to volunteer yourself, speak for about 3 minutes and answer those questions. What were surprising, what we already knew but now see in a different light, and what we still need help with, and say it as we. So if that's fair enough, let's go ahead and start with group one's representative. And anybody who is that person, go ahead and stand up, please. Or sorry, just start speaking, please. You can unmute yourself and be group one. Or do I have, actually, you know what? Just so that we don't put anybody in their amygdala by doing what I just did. Jeff, what group were you in?
I don't know what group we were in,
Oh,
but
that's helpful.
I can start. So first of all, it was really, really cool to finally kind of connect. And there are some people that were surprised by the learning platform that's available. They didn't know that that was available. And there were some people that were thinking, we felt we were surprised that there's a learning platform, and we realized that we used a lot of these techniques, but we don't know, like we didn't know that these were actually, that some people were kind of back in normal, classroom ages. So we don't, some of those use those. And so that was like a surprise that people actually still, grind in the classroom. There was also, we were surprised by the results of the Kirkpatrick analysis. And we found that one of the things that we really want to know more is we now know about the polling, we now know about the breakout groups. How else can we provide this interactivity in a neuroscientific manner, that sort of a learning manner?
Thank you very much. That's great. And you bring up a real important point, and that is that a lot of the techniques, the things that we do in brain-centric design are intuitive to you now. You do these things. And this is when this was developed. I was a sales guy, and I was trying to figure out how to sell, how to make the perfect pitch every time. And it ends up, I was asking the wrong question. What I really should have been asking was, how can I could present this so they understand it? Because if they understand it, they would buy it. And if you think of that dynamic, that's every learning environment. It's a huge piece of the puzzle. And so all brain-centric design does really is take these things you do intuitively and put it into a framework that's replicable and scalable. You put it's just like a perfect chocolate chip cookie, like on the back of the Nestle's bag. If you use the right ingredients in the right amount at the right time, you get a perfect chocolate chip cookie. And in the education or learning or presentation game, if you use the right ingredients in the right amount at the right time, you get the perfect presentation. So thanks for bringing that up, Jeff.
Yeah.
Group 2, which I forgot to put names on them. So let's have the next group say, jump up and report out if somebody would please be a volunteer from that group or from a group.
I'm happy to volunteer. This is Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne.
So in our group, a couple of surprises. You know, early on in the broadcast, we did the polling, and then later on there was some calling on some people to actually express their knowledge. So we were a little surprised about that whole, you know, amygdala hijack. You know, a little surprised. Is there an appropriateness as to when to do it and when not to, especially in this setting? Also, applying this model in a virtual setting was surprising to see. So we'll echo on what Jeffrey shared. Also, we were, you know, very familiar. A lot of us were familiar with the model, but again, seeing it in a new light in this application in Zoom, it was really exciting for many of us to see, to just really see it real time and seeing so many different ways to apply it. We discussed, you know, as far as the parking lot, how you can use that, and just many different things that can encourage and engage the learner. Also still need help. So what we all said on the heels of that was, you know, while we got to get a taste of it here, there's things that we still want to experiment and see how we can just, again, apply this model in a virtual setting in Zoom. But it was really impressive to see. We all enjoyed that.
Solid. Thank you so much, Yvonne. That's awesome.
Could I jump in for one split second?
Please do.
I don't want to take up too much time, but very interesting from that discussion, the idea that since the model is two things, cyclical and iterative, meaning that it's a cycle and everybody in the model, which means all of us, will know that if I was the leader today, I won't be the leader tomorrow. If I was the taskmaster today, I won't be the taskmaster tomorrow. And the point is that we all have roles and we interchange them so that there's no there's predictability and there's no surprises. We know that at some point in the future, we will be the person that's going to be called on. And so that takes away the sense of danger and gets rid of the amygdala hijack. The second thing is, as you said earlier, it is iterative. That means that the second and third and fourth time you're in there, you're already thinking in the model, and therefore it takes away all of the crisis around cognitive load and amygdala hijack. Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran. And we have time for one more report out from another group. Have any volunteers? Hey, batter. Nobody knows who that group is? Going once? Going twice? They know that third is going to be one of those things where you say, you know, sold, and we won't have to speak up. And I'll go with that because I want to make sure that you feel solid about this presentation and got what you needed to get out of it. So to get to the final slide here, I wanted to make sure that you understood there is more information and that we will be bringing back to you. You can get a lot more information at our website, which is brain-centric-design.com, or you can just wait for an email. I'm going to send you an email with the notes from this, a link to this recording so you can watch it again if you'd like. And I will also be sending you some information on certification. If you want to look at it, it's just a link you have to click. And bench strength, because a lot of people say, how do we get involved? You know, how could we get going this today because we're in this situation today? From soup to nuts. And what I mean by that is, I mean, you can buy a book and learn it yourself. We can be bench strength where you can help your business by joining your team as it goes. We can take over a project for you, or we can work with your team on a project, and while doing so, certify that team so you can get rid of us and have brain-centric designers within your organization, making sure that all of your materials are presented this way. Those are ways you learn more. The other way you learn more is absolutely free. I've got your name now, and if you opt out, I won't send you anything, of course. But I'll be sending an email here tomorrow to a group of people, making sure some other assets are made available to you. And of course, online, you can always search for Brain-centric Design. We have a number of videos on YouTube that Kieran and myself are explaining different parts of the wheels, different things about the amygdala hijack, different things about dopamine, which are vitally important in the learning space. I mean, it's almost like a learning space anymore is now managing neurotransmitters and time. And when you have this model, all you have to build is the perspectives around the concept that you want them to uncover the learning on. And that's where that butterfly cocoon thing comes from. That's where you're kind of liberated. So instead of where am I going to start, you know that you have to have a wheel and you have to have some perspectives and you have to have a challenge that's engaging to each person personally. It has to be about me here now. Remember, my challenge was how can learning framework engage my learners, for ultimate enthusiasm, or however that was written. It was made to be personal, and learning is personal. And when you keep it safe by not putting people on the spot or giving them a C or a D or saying you're wrong, and you construct it in this model, and they know that that's the model every time you're going to have a meeting or a new course or a new presentation, they love it. They love it, and that those demographics, sorry, the Kirkpatrick results prove that, and we were very excited about that. We've also presented at Columbia College in New York, and do so online every week. So we'll give you that information as we go forward to answer those questions. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for not only taking time during this crazy time I would love to say just our area, but because I'm in Seattle, but it's the globe, and it's wonderful that folks like you are stepping up to upskill. Because remember, I'll leave you with this. Gartner Inc., a think tank for global business everywhere, just recently put out a declaration that by 2028, the most valuable business skill will be cognitive thinking. Constant digital upskilling and cognitive thinking will outweigh tenure and experience by 2028. And that's one reason why most innovative businesses are moving to managing their business by understanding how the brain works and making sure their materials are presented in that way to have the most benefit possible. So any other questions, please send them to me at rc@brain-centric-design.com. I'll make sure I answer each and every one of them. If you got questions about anything or stuff I didn't bring up, please do so. And thanks again for attending this professional learning community from Brain-centric Design. You all have a great day, evening, and afternoon. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.